Yeah.
It was great.
So they clean your car for you, and you get back there, you're like, yeah.
My
I had
favorite.
to like, go back into awkward brain. It was fun.
I don't know if we got any pictures of this. Maybe we did off scripts, but in the green room, minutes before the show, everyone looking at their character sheets. And you had pages of stuff out. Everybody had so much crap because, yeah.
Marisha specifically, because it's pages of shit. And the panic that was like, oh my god, I was in this every week at one point.
I was like, no fucking wonder I was stressed out.
Yep.
Damn.
Travis, X-Dragon Rider X wants to know, where did you get the inspiration to create Sir Bertrand Bell? That was such a great character.
It certainly had nothing to do with Gilderoy Lockhart or me being a Harry Potter fan. It was 100% that.
Yeah, very Gilderoy Lockhart.
Yeah, that, and I think like Runaway Bride was on the TV, and I was like, Richard Gere's a handsome little son of a bitch. I'm gonna make an older Silver Fox looking character.
Yeah.
It was an older guy that's full of shit.
He knew Silver Fox's entire life.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
He was like 20 and he was old.
Seriously.
It's crazy.
Yeah, just one of those old handsome guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was
that'll happen to me.
No. Yeah.
Aw, Steve, you're so nice.
Yeah.
What do you want us to tell you?
Nothing now. Steve sealed the deal. What are you doing after this? You want to come over and watch the Bachelor finale with me, Steve?
Nope.
I'm 0 for 10. Rebecca Justino has a question for Travis. No, let's ask this one. Marisha, because I just asked Travis one. Alita Stewart, 15. How did you navigate Keyleth's grief? Was it something you thought over, or did it develop naturally over role play?
Oh, no, I thought about it deeply. Yeah, I mean, I thought about it for a long time after the game ended. That was weird. Like real-life grief for fictional characters. And then also, like, the kind of grief of retiring our campaign, was kind of mixed emotions. So, yeah, no, there was that grief. But, yeah, we talked a lot with Matt because we didn't want it to be, like, a bummer. But also didn't want to ignore the fact that, you know, the elephantitis in the room, to quote Brian Foster.
I didn't say that. What the fuck are you talking about?
So
it's on tape. That's fucking insensitive.
the route of kind of using this immediate trip after all of this as a way of kind of escapism and compartmentalization.
We'll deal with it after we get Grog back.
Yeah, anything, distract me, please.
Yeah. You're welcome, I did it for you.
Grog.
Can you talk to him and process and work through your grief?
Just go on a little walkabout.
Yeah, you find you in there, alright.
Playing piano.
Come find me when you can.
What did you think when you when Liam busted his character out?
Oh, fuck you, bro. Fuck you.
Yeah.
No, and we talked about, he's like, were you actually mad? I'm like, no, of course I wasn't actually mad. But in Keyleth's eyes, it's like a walking, you know, billboard of a reminder, you know, in front of you at all times. So.
And that's what Liam wanted to do.
Yeah.
That's right.
Travis, Chris Patterson asks, this isn't the first time you've pulled out an actual 20 or 2 in a huge moment for Grog. Between the Empyrean and Kevdak, which was the most satisfying?
Man, I genuinely thought I would never top the Kevdak moment, and just because it was story and the importance to Grog, Kevdak I think is always still the top, but in that live audience, with that energy and that wave of sound and just the probability, like the percentages were so low for that to happen. It was, I told everybody afterwards, like I've scored touchdowns that didn't mean that much.
Didn't feel that.
Yeah, that
moment
was amazing.
I was so glad Daniel was right behind you. It was the only time I've ever been happy he was somewhere.
Yeah.
So you could walk over in his bandana and get a shot of that 20.
Yeah, I don't know how I
What dice is that? Could I have that? I would love to roll that against my players.
Sure.
I think it needs to be cast in resin.
Yeah, it's the same Kevdak one because I just have one set of dice.
Yeah, he only has one set of dice. That's why all of his damage rolls is Grog took 4 hours.
I have a couple extra D20s and a couple extra like D12s just for when I got crazy, but I never use them. I just roll singles because I don't like rolling too many dice.
You carry a lot of singles?
You know it.
to the bank.
What's wrong with me?
Any of you?
I don't know. What's wrong with me? Do we have time? Oh, hey, let's talk about After Dark for a second.
Yeah.
So, we stopped doing it for a little while. We said we're going to talk to you guys about it later. So we have some ideas.
Yeah.
And we're trying to see how they're coming along.
Yes.
So we'll keep you guys.
People want them.
We'll keep you guys posted.
Yeah.
We have some very interesting ideas.
Really?
Yeah. How much is a helicopter
In GTA or in real life?
in real life? The one that looks like mine in GTA. That's
Too
not
much.
pink. Too much?
Yep.
Can we?
6 figures.
Oh, really?
Yep.
At least.
Oh, Sam's got that kind of money laying around in his mattress that we shot the promo on.
Yeah, can we just talk about the beer that's in his champagne flute in the Kickstarter video?
It's beer.
It's
up
beer.
there. I think we
It has
really,
a head on it. It's like a
Wow.
I think we handed it to him because we thought it was a joke in the moment, super fast, and we we're like, "Oh, go do that." And I don't think he knew it was beer. I think we have a take somewhere of him sipping it and going, "That's beer."
Yeah. That's amazing.
Anticipating that.
One more search for Grog. T. Mandy II. Which character besides your own were you most happy to see in action again?
Percy.
Yes.
Percy was great.
God,
I love that silky dark
I know.
motherfucker.
He's something
He
else.
Allison's.
Oh man, and he like nailed it.
And that one turn, the record-breaking damage
Yes.
turn. Holy shit!
Yes.
Unleash the beast.
What was it? He had
Wow.
such his Percy lines. I'm just like, God, it was like no time.
First one about how let's go kindly demand help.
Yeah.
I just I almost like screamed. I was like, Percy, yes.
When Keyleth asked him to help him, he's a genius. When Keyleth was like, help me, and he was like, I am helping him, helping run things. Fucking
He is an improv genius.
He's so
isn't he?
good.
Yeah. Oh.
Damn it.
yeah, he was great. I mean, and then of course like seeing Sam and Scanlan
Yeah.
back in back in the cube. It was pretty good.
Boy,
Hearing him do his little songies again.
that outfit.
That and the first time Laura said, "Darling," I was like,
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, her voice.
Just everything. It felt like, I mean, same with Pike though. Same with Ashley. Even she was like, Grog?
Oh,
Yeah.
Grog, are you in there?
he's smart even though.
Oh.
Yeah.
He's a good boy. I was
So good. It was like,
like,
as soon as like someone says something again, and you're just like, my heart.
I know.
well, I mean, we had an early Q&A, right? There was an early Q&A before the show started, and one of the questions was like, you guys ever thought about making like an animated series with your Vox Machina characters? And I had to be like,
They were like,
patience.
that's right.
The Kickstarter was
Patience.
right around the
Yeah.
corner, and so like that love and energy for those characters was
Yeah.
the sweetest thing to send us into the preparing for the Kickstarter that killed us the first day.
Yeah. Man, that was a great episode. If you are one of the 2 or 3 people that hasn't seen The Search for Grog, it's available now at youtube.com. Just kidding, /
Oh, reversal!
Critical Role. That's all the time we have for tonight. I have to rush home to see the Bachelor finale. I am very invested this season.
Is it a 2-parter? I thought it was last night.
Dude, they're doing this bullshit. Imagine if on Tots we opened and I'm like, are we on the internet? And just, I do the announcements.
Yep.
I read the crit roll stats and I'm like, and now let's discuss the episode. Tomorrow night, Chris Harrison comes out with his baby hands and he's like, tomorrow we're gonna, you're like, I want that job.
Oh,
That's
man.
the only job I would want more than this
man.
one. I want to host The
got you.
Bachelor. When he retires, ABC, listen to me. I know you're watching. Look at the size of these hands. Look at the size of these hands. Also, I'm very cheap. I come with minimal legal liabilities. Travis, would you say that that's
It's completely inaccurate.
okay? I am popular with people that watch that show.
You smell good.
Thank you.
Yes.
2 years of trying to, when people meet me at conventions, I'm a hugger. I like to hug people every once in a while. If someone's comfortable with it, I'll ask them. And they go, oh my God. I initially was going to say no to the hug because of the cabbage thing, But now I'm walking away smelling like, lavender and you know, I'd use a lot of patchouli oil. I put those down the shirt. That's what you're supposed to do with it. Max gave me a hemp necklace he made. It smells really good. I'm
That's
wearing it under this.
Max is very good at crafts.
I think that's garlic. It's a vampire.
Should we have Max do a crafting show on the channel?
Yes.
That was Max in the horse costume. If you guys saw the Dark Horse promo, by
Oh,
the way,
it's
wearing
so
those,
good.
wearing
Oh,
those
Biscuit.
nets.
What was it?
Oh, that was Biscuit. Who changed it to Biscuit? I named him Tim. He was named Tim.
It was a debate. It was a debate. I was like, I like Tim. Pitch me on Biscuit. And then, this is true.
Me on Biscuit.
I was like,
You guys,
what are you
this
doing?
is what happens in our channel.
Yeah.
Every day it's pitch me on
Pitch
Biscuit.
me on why Biscuit is funnier.
Yeah.
And Taliesin made the point where with him with Max in his Coldplay shirt and his fishnet gloves, he was like,
It was
he
the
looks
Cure,
like
the
a
Cure
10.
shirt, not a Coldplay. There's a
Oh,
difference
sorry, it was
between
the
the Cure
Cure.
and Coldplay.
Sorry.
Let's quickly rush to make that
Yeah.
distinction.
You can get either shirts at Hot Topic though.
Yes.
I know this because we had the
We
debate.
sent Jerry.
They're on the same Pandora channel. Coldplay.
We sent Jerry to get the blow dryer today, and I said, "This is the worst thing you guys have done to Jerry." And Vinny goes, "I sent him to Hot Topic last week." anyway, you were saying. Pitch you
Yeah.
on Biscuit.
I said, why not Tim? And he was like, look at him. He looks like he could be a Tim as he's standing there. He looks like he is a Tim. And I was like, you're right. I guess let's try Biscuit. So Biscuit ended up being the one.
Actually, I love it when animals have like two human names, like a dog named Matt.
Henry.
Exactly. We almost named him Dan.
That's right, you did.
We almost named
Deadwood,
him
baby.
Dan Doherty.
Yep.
Yeah, we almost, but he was such a Henry.
Kyle.
Well, I love you guys.
That's great.
It's time to go home.
Let's go, Henry.
Oh,
He's
this is
walking out.
New.
Bye, Brian.
Yeah, sure.
Bye, guys.
So, Travis, I appreciate the attempt at flirting. I
Bye.
appreciate the jester flirtation attempts.
I tried,
You did try.
but man, the
Take it.
gaze from the dragon lady was,
Validated.
whew, that was not happening.
Can anyone validate this parking ticket? Is there anyone that could?
That's good.
That is legitimate.
And this is why what Cenk and the Young Turks are doing is so important.
Brent Welder is very progressive Democrat. He's a just Democrat. In fact, uncorrupted, not going to take big corporate PAC money. When did you start watching the show? When did you become a member?
So I've been watching for 10 years, an active viewer, but also more importantly, getting out there with causes like Wolfpack.
By the end of our campaign, we had organized about 22,000 individual contributions with an average of about $27 a piece. And those initial people were a lot of TYT supporters as well.
They're looking at the world in a very different way than corporate media does.
It takes those early people who believe that can really be the seeds of this movement, and that has been the Young Turks.
Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks.
Thank you to TYT and all the progressives around the country that have our backs.
You know, the first and only interview that we had tonight to do with the Young Turks as well, because you guys have been here from the very beginning, and that's what this is all about.
And I thank Cenk very much for the very good work that he does.
Thank you so much for all of this together, and the people are so powerful, and we're gonna get it done.
Thank you for your constant support.
It's a pleasure to be with rebels. I like that.
For all of the help that you've given to the Just Democrats, to Wolfpack, to help fellow progressives, thank you guys. To all the Young Turks members that make it possible. I'm back to gaslighting. Did you and I talk about gaslighting on Old School? Probably. That boss gaslit all his female employees. People who manipulate others like that make you feel like you're the weirdo. Why won't you punch yourself in the face? What is wrong with you? And you're like, oh my God, I feel so bad. Why didn't I just punch myself in the face and poke my eye out? I'm 47 and I just figured that out earlier this year. That it would have been happening my whole life and I didn't realize. All right, back on the Young Turks. Lots of interesting comments here. I'll do them as quickly as I can. Engineer writes in, Benno says the audience just pulls these words out of him. Does that mean a different audience pulls something else out of him? Sounds like the definition of a weather vane candidate. Okay. Jorge Bustamante Jr. says, I'm just born to do this, seems like hashtag I'm with him. And we all saw how that worked out in 2016. Okay. And Colin, these are all members, says, Beto is a moderate because he's in a red state. He's a far better choice than any Republican. But I'm putting my support behind Pete Buttigieg. He's more progressive and also succeeded in a red state. Okay, that's an opinion. What is it? Buttigieg. Okay, my bad. English teacher 1984 says, I'm more interested in Isley than I am in O'Rourke. At least he has a clear position points. Not saying that I would vote for him, but I was interested in researching, and Isley's very good on the environment, so that's fair. I love that you guys are thinking about it and looking at the policy positions of all the different candidates.
Yeah, well, watch his appearance on The View when he talked with Meghan McCain about climate change. It's pretty awesome. Anyway, I'm just excited for the debates. There's going to be a lot of great candidates who are good on different issues, and hopefully the sum total of all of that can, in a short period of time, move the Democratic Party a ton.
Yeah, and last thing, I talked about Wolfpack in the opening segment. Please, wolf-pack.com/join. There are no secret donors. You guys are in. So we can do this together, but we've got to stick together. wolf-pack.com/join and become a member of Wolfpack. All right, what's next?
Okay, something fun. Donald Trump is back to threatening violence against his political opponents. This happened in an interview with Breitbart where he said, it's so terrible what's happening. You know, the left plays a tougher game. It's very funny. I actually think that the people on the right are tougher, but they don't play it tougher, okay? I can tell you, I have the support of the police, the support of the military, the support of the bikers for Trump. I have the tough people, but they don't play it tough until they go to a certain point, and then it would be very bad, very bad. But the left plays it cuter and tougher.
Okay,
so that's fun.
Okay. So look, it's in some ways a word salad as always. You're always trying to decipher what the hell is he saying, right?
I know what he's saying.
But the implication in this case is pretty clear and very dangerous. So he's saying, I have the guys with the guns. And so if you get to a certain point, it's going to be very bad for you. Now, that is what fascists say. Look, mainstream media, right wing, you want to get triggered, that's your problem, okay? But people that are authoritarian threaten violence, state violence, against their political opponents. By the way, you know who else does that? Nicolas Maduro. He has control of the military, and he says, look, man, the guys with the guns are on my side. What are you going to do about it? The tough people are on my side. You know who else does that? Ayatollah Khamenei. He says, hey, I got the Republican Guard on my side. So what are you going to do about it? I have the army. Al-Sisi in Egypt, Putin in Russia, Erdogan in Turkey. They go, I got the guns. What are you going to do about it? And this is Trump now ruining America by telling me about, I have the people with guns on my side. And if you dare cross me, things can get very, very bad.
Yeah. Two important things. One, if you are a member of a police department, a member of the military, understand that Donald Trump not only thinks that hypothetically you would help him carry out some sort of massacre against his political opponents, but also that he puts you on the same level as the bikers for Trump. So not a lot of respect coming there. But also, I think this is sort of important. We got to put this quote in context. He says specifically, they don't play it tough until they go to a certain point. Do you want to know what he talked about in the sentence after that quote cut off? Mm-hmm. The investigations of his presidency.
Yeah. So, look, guys, here's another layer to it. Part of the reason I mentioned some of those other leaders is that once they've done the corruption in office, then they can't leave. Because if they leave and they lose power, then they will be investigated. And they'll see that a lot of the money got moved out of the country. And if you move the money out of the country, people are going to want that money back because you stole that money. Now, in this case with Donald Trump, he is not only talking about federal investigations, he thinks that he is immune from prosecution while he's president, but he is not immune from prosecution when he's no longer president. And he can't pardon himself when he's not president. And then there's the state investigations, which he couldn't pardon himself for and could be in trouble for in a couple of different ways. So now he's got a situation that if he leaves office, he might go to prison. So now he's talking about, well, maybe I could, bring in my tough guys at a certain point. Yeah. So is this guy ever going to leave office?
Yeah. And again, this isn't evidence. This is just sort of something to bear in mind. But if you were being investigated and you knew that you were innocent, would you threaten to murder your political opponents? I don't think you'd have to do that necessarily. The only solution I can see, because I agree, hypothetically, once you leave office, you'll be investigated. The only thing that would save him is if, hypothetically, Barack Obama became president again, decide not to look backward. He's looking forward.
Yeah. And now, of course, that's what Obama did for Bush and Cheney. But it's very scary talk, very dangerous talk. And so, in a post game earlier this week, Anna and I had a discussion about who's worse, Bush or Trump. And Bush, I argued, is still worse because the Iraq War killed about 1 million innocent civilians. The economic crash happened, cost 8 million jobs, etc. But Trump's threat to democracy and his dividing us, and Anna made the point that, look, he's hurt our culture. Now we all hate each other, right? And it's not like we were getting along great and singing Kumbaya during the Bush years or the Obama years, but it has gotten significantly worse. And now he's saying the people in my camp, not only should you hate other people, but you should get your guns. That is not what America was supposed to be about. We pride ourselves on peaceful transitions of power. This is literally un-American. These threats from a president, I've never seen anything this dangerous in my lifetime. Okay, we're out of time, guys. We got a great hour coming up with you guys. Monster Bonnie and Naomi Prince are going to come. And so we'll be right back.
Despite the fact that we get a lot of mean, hateful, hurtful tweets about Old School, we're going to put all the nice ones together and read them to you.
You came in late to watch TYD Old School, and I heard, Jake, you were talking about napkins. Is this the kind of nonsense Anna Kasparian was talking about? Gotta love membership privileges. Gotta love it.
Please have Dave on every 4 episodes or so. Hashtag colorisms, hashtag no cheese.
Yay! I love Old School! Watching Ben Mankiewicz and Jake Huger on Old School talking is exactly like watching Seinfeld and George. But I'm not sure if that's a compliment.
I just finished watching season 3 of Narcos. It looks like Michael Schur has a huge role in it. Is that really Michael?
A couple things about this video. Dave Kohler looks so badass.
Loving Emma Vigeland after last night's Old School. Did I mention that was my first Old School? Fucking awesome. I agree. They're pretty awesome.
Who's on Old School today? Is there one? At Dave Kohler. I hope it's not Brett Ehrlich.
This episode of Old School has killed me. Who knew a conversation about good and bad underwear could be so hilarious and relatable? Hashtag one last ride. Animals are innocent, dude. There's more than a 73% chance that this Old School will be really funny. Cenk Uygur has been up since 4 a.m., so he's tired. Hence, everything will seem funnier to him. P.S. Remember, food talk, new words, and no or very little politics.
Dave Kohler, enjoyed performance on Old School. Can we please hear about your time as a geologist? One geologist to another. Hashtag geology.
Can someone please inform Ben that his hair is too organized for Old School? It needs to be slightly shuffled about or something to look slightly unkempt. It's making me uncomfortable. That's what Old School's all about, being unkempt. Great show, guys. I wish Old School went on a lot longer. It's already like 2.5 hours. How much longer can we go?
Old School is a lot of fun, and I appreciate that all these people enjoy it, because I know Cenk loves to do it, and he does it because he knows the fans love it too.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to No Filter. Hey, guys. Welcome back to No Filter. Do you guys like that intro music? I hope you enjoyed that CSI-like intro music that brought you into the program today. I don't know how to describe it. It's the People's Court type of music. All right. With that said, let's get to the news. Last Thursday, an employee at the store called 911 to report that the men were trespassing because they hadn't purchased anything. What? That is one of the most insane arguments I've heard. Trump's administration would like to protect the big banks and assist them in screwing you over. We should have a government that protects us. Yeah, I'm putting you on blast. Now, with that said, I want to move on to another injustice in the country, and that has to do with CEO pay. Teachers in several red states are making headlines protesting the fact that their districts have been severely underfunded. They haven't received raises in years, sometimes decades. Damn, keeping it 100.
Top.
My name is Cassandra Hanks. I've been with TYT for 3 years. I am a video editor and photographer. The main perk for working for TYT is, as being their main photographer, I get to photograph and sometimes meet some of the celebrities that come through. Susan Sarandon was amazing because she brought her dog Penny. Tom Morello is probably my favorite because I love rock music. Meeting people like Joss Whedon and Quentin Tarantino as being some of the reasons why I got into filmmaking and photography was like a dream come true.
Turks, we have two great hosts for you guys today. Monster Bonnie, Nomi Prince. Thank you guys for doing it. I love doing this show. I mean, you guys are brilliant, smart, funny, educated, all these things, and I get through the show with you guys. So thank you for coming in.
Thank you. Thanks for the nice words,
Yeah.
man. I feel good now.
Right, welcome. We can do this.
Yeah, the pressure's on. We got to deliver.
Right.
So, speaking of brilliant Young Turks hosts, Anna was at the United Nations and was part of a panel there where she gave, as usual, a fiery speech. And if you remember, you got to go there and get first shot at the tickets, and a lot of you went. So people were kind of blown away by how many people showed up, which is really, really neat. So tyt.com/join to become a member and always have the first opportunity at these kind of events. So I'm going to show you a little bit of Anna's talk at the panel from today at the United Nations Watch.
To be sure, it's a tumultuous time for journalism overall, and you see more and more political intimidation toward journalists. You see more and more journalists getting targeted by political leaders in various countries. But there's also this very unique experience that female journalists go through. And it does have to do with gender biases. It has to do with sexual intimidation, sexual harassment, and some of the experiences that I've had have been traumatizing, but I do want to just say that I don't consider myself a victim. I consider myself a fighter, and not just a fighter for myself or female journalists today, but for younger journalists, like future female journalists who might get dissuaded, who might see all of this harassment as a deterrent. I think it's really important to build younger generations up and fight for them so they don't have to deal with the same level of harassment that we deal with today.
Man, look, all of us here are so proud of her. That was a panel called Journalism and the Empowerment of Women, and obviously we'll put that up for the members as well, tyt.com/join to become a member, like I said. But Anna representing all of us, all of you guys, and speaking truth to power as always.
And I just want to say, I mean, we all love Anna. I love Anna. Anna is the strength that she uses in the journalism that she does, and that she basically extends to particularly all journalists, but other women journalists. It's so true. It's so important to know your stuff, to get on the ground, to not care about the intimidation, and to just roll forward. She embodies that. That was an amazing speech. That is so incredibly inspirational. And I hope for anyone out there who's thinking about being a journalist, who's starting to write your own stuff, just keep going, because that truth is what we all need to make this world better. And Anna just symbolizes that so strongly.
One last thing. When I went to the state of Washington on the issue to get money out of politics, a mom came up to me with her 11-year-old daughter and said, hey, she wanted to say something to you. And I said, sure, what is it? And she said, can you please tell Anna she's my role model? And God, that's just so great to hear. Thank you guys. So everybody check out the speech when you hear it. Okay, let's move on. We got a lot of great stories for you guys to cover here. So, there she goes again. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez challenging the CEO of Wells Fargo on a couple of issues. Let me go to the Washington Post here to tell you what one of them is, and then we'll show you a video from her. More than 2,700 children were separated from their parents last year as part of the Trump administration's zero-tolerance policy to deter migrant families from crossing the border. And what Ocasio-Cortez challenged Wells Fargo on is, you guys finance those detention centers, so you basically financed caging those kids. And to give you a sense of how bad it is, the U.S. deported about 430 parents without their children, and at least 200 of them still remain separated. So they're in those cages, and we don't know where their parents are. So that's your background and context. Now here's Ocasio-Cortez with the CEO of Wells Fargo.
One question, why did Wells Fargo finance this pipeline when it was widely seen to be environmentally unstable?
Again, the reason that we were one of the 17 or 19 banks that financed that was because our team reviewed the environmental impact, and we concluded that it was a risk that we were willing to take.
A risk they were willing to take. So we're going to come back to that risk because she's got a great tweet about it, and I want to let everybody weigh in here. But understand the theme that that AOC is driving towards in both lines of questioning. You guys are making choices at Wells Fargo about what to invest in, what to finance, including the cages that we put the kids in, and this pipeline in North Dakota, which often leaks, and even if it didn't leak, brings the worst oil in the world through our country and contributes to climate change. You made those choices. That's why I'm asking you about it.
Right. And Wells Fargo, of course, not alone in making those sorts of decisions. It's interesting, Tim Sloan, who got paid $18.4 million last year for making those sorts of choices, continuing to preside over that, talks about 17 or 19 other banks. That doesn't actually change the fact that people, when they deposit money in these institutions, that also commit a ton of extra crimes along the way. Wells Fargo in particular has a laundry list, like longer than Manafort's, of all the types of fraud and crimes they've committed over the years, and they've paid bailouts for. They've gotten bailouts for, they've paid settlements on, and people fund that. We fund that. There are banks that don't do that. There are banks like Aspiration Bank that actually actively says, we do not invest your money without your permission or at all in any sort of fossil fuel negative types of projects. We don't do that. We give 10% to charity. There are ways to choose to use money and not create, additional funding for these institutions that truly don't care do not care beyond what he said, the financials of the trade, of the deal, with what it actually does.
Yeah, well, also I read the article and it talked about how when she challenged him on the cages in these facilities, and he said, I didn't know about that, or he basically distanced himself from it. And it's interesting because if you and I or any of us wanted to get, wanted to add a bathroom to the house, when you go for the loan, you got to say there's a home equity loan, there's what we do with it. So they should know what's going to happen here. And the fact that there's this whole turn away from calling it cages, and the administration is trying not to call it cages. And what is it? It's a one-bedroom condo with bars as a door. I mean, what are we going to call this? What are we going to call it, right? It's cages. Let's call it what it is. And then you can rectify it. You can sit there and go, you know what? Even if, let's say the guy says, look, I'm so high up, I didn't know it, but we're going to do something about it. You should do something about it, because it's atrocious. It's as Americans, we should all be right and left. We should be highly bothered by this, that they are cages. Let's call it what it is. Don't pull a Kristen Nielsen to try to get out of it by saying, I didn't know the detention centers have cages, put kids in cages. Well, they did, so do something about it.
So look, I still call myself a capitalist. We talked about it earlier in the show. I think that labels have very little meaning to begin with. But this is the downside of capitalism, where the guy comes in and says, yeah, but I made money. So the moral downside is your problem, not really my problem. And in fact, that leads to Ocasio-Cortez's tweet on this. She said, the CEO of Wells Fargo said they chose to finance the unstable Dakota Access Pipeline over Standing Rock suit objections because the bank determined that it was, quote, worth the risk. To whom? Apple has leaked at least 5 times, and we, the public, are left to pay for cleanup and destroyed land. See, that's exactly right. Naomi Klein was on the show, and she has the best saying on this that I repeat often. What are they doing? They're privatizing the gains and socializing the costs. So it's capitalism for the few and socialism for the rest of us. So meaning they take all the money home, and then when it comes to the costs, well, all of a sudden they love socialism, and they're spreading it out. Oh, no. I'm not paying the cost. When it leaks, you clean it up. But wait a minute, you made all the money from it. You didn't share that money with us. All of a sudden you were a capitalist when it came to making the money. But when it comes to actually paying for your mess, all of a sudden you go, oh, socialism. Socialism, let the government pay for it. Well, that's the citizens of North Dakota and the federal government, etc. That's not fair. And by the way, they then used the cops in North Dakota as the Pinkertons to crush the protesters. And the protesters were right. They were trying to look out for the citizens of North Dakota.
And the environment around there. And again, it's also individuals in the country that are financing this as well. So we're socializing the expenses, the losses, the environmental losses, the individual losses, the incarcerations that happened around those protests, all of that occurs. But we're also, as people, involved in a system that is financing the decisions, the project that makes people like Tim Sloan multimillionaires, that makes these institutions act beyond responsibility to the very people, the country at large, yes, taxpayers, yes, the idea of what government cleans up for them, yes, but also the way in which they appropriate money that people give them to use through their banking services that are also include criminal activities, if you're looking at Wells Fargo and some of these as well, without any say as to how that money gets spent. And that's also an incredible flaw in the system. So we are financing so much of what Tim Sloan and these other guys make by virtue of how the financial system is set up. We can, at the very least, move away from those large institutions, and at least if we do banking, do it with places that don't not care about caging children and don't not care about what happens when pipelines leak into the soil.
Well, it's a shame that it takes us to do that. As you were saying, it's capitalism. Money talks, right? And once the advertisers move away, once the customers leave, then they wake up. How does that guy sleep with himself at night when he knows that this is what the money's being used for and he's going home with $18 million? I often wonder that. Wouldn't it have been refreshing if when she approaches him with the question, he goes, listen, you know what? I hear you. Some really bad stuff happened there. And we thought it was worth it, but then we realized it wasn't, or whatever. Where's the buck stop? It's very much,
leader.
Be a leader. It's very much this, again, I mean, I keep, I personally turn a lot to, I mean, it's very mirrors what Trump does, which is he goes, wasn't my fault. I don't know what, not my responsibility. Let's pass it on. So this guy's saying, oh, with the pipeline, we thought it was worth it. With the cages, I didn't know there were cages. Cages? What cages? Right. What about just saying, what if he said, you know what? Yes, the pipeline is a bad thing. I'm going to do something about it. We'd all be jumping. I'd be like, what just happened? You know?
And you give them credit for it.
Yeah.
Right. So last thing, guys, think about this double standard. When it comes to getting extra rights and protections and privileges, they all agree upon this absurd fiction that corporations are people. Remember Mitt Romney famously saying, corporations are people, my friend. So that gives them so-called constitutional rights in which they say, hey, one of my rights is the freedom to speak like a person, and speech is money, so I'm going to be giving unlimited money to politicians because I'm a person. But when it comes to taking responsibility, all of a sudden they're not people, right? All of a sudden they're like, oh, no, I have to maximize profit. No, I can't take moral considerations into account. You want to use them for cages to keep kids locked up? Great. You want to leak all over North Dakota and destroy the planet? Great. I got to maximize profit. What do you think I am, a person? Okay, so which one is it? Are you a person or are you not? Are you going to act like a decent human being or are you not? And so the reality is, it's not that we want to get rid of corporations, it's that we can actually pass laws. It is incumbent upon us. Corporations are what is called a legal fiction. We created them through the laws. And we can change those laws to put better guidelines on them. And to say, hey, you know what? You should maximize profit, but that is not your only mandate. You also have to care about citizens, stakeholders, constituents, different sets of people, and humanity. You actually have to care about humanity. We can ask them to do that. We're choosing not to. Then we shouldn't be surprised when they buy off our government, when they maximize profit at all the cost to the rest of us. In reality, they took home all the gains, but all those oil companies, they caused climate change, they've caused all these leaks, the banks have financed all of it, and when it comes time to pay those costs, they should also be a huge part of that. Okay, we got to take a quick break here, guys. We do have a lot more coming up for you guys, including a story of horrible injustice turned to a little bit of justice. I mean, it's a really frightening story that has beginning to have a happy ending. So I'll explain when we come back. It's very, very important. We'll be right back.
I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm at a Wolfpack gathering.
We're growing. I see faces that I recognize, but I also see a lot of faces that I don't recognize, and that's fantastic.
We are all taking time out of our lives to be here, and that's amazing. That means we truly believe in this. Make no mistake, everyone in this room is a leader in Wolfpack.
Alaska, West Virginia, Montana, Georgia, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, everyone is here. All these folks paid with their own money and sometimes took vacation days to come here and to strategize on how to get our democracy back and get money out of politics.
Or you get more political power just because you have more money. This is why it requires a constitutional amendment.
The process of winning in your state next year doesn't begin when session begins. It begins right now. So work to a goal, something this big, that you're actually making a difference of. There's very few things in the world that really compare to that feeling.
Equal rights, a fair representation, rights for human beings, anti-corruption laws, and free and fair elections. That's what we are fighting for.
Who were the founding fathers? Revolutionaries. And they built revolution into the document.
Article 5 is the way we have to go. This is how you do it.
You're in this as a team, you're in this together. The fight will always continue.
That fight is not between the left and the right. That fight is between basically greed and humanity.
So I'm asking you to put differences aside, whether you're conservative or independent or progressive, to join forces to say no more corruption.
You get beyond the fear, you take that first step, and you'll change the world.
What I want to leave you with, of course, is hope. And I want to assure you that if we keep fighting together, we're going to win together. We're going to get that convention, we're going to get that amendment, and we're going to get our democracy back. Come join us, wolf-pack.com.
For the first time ever, we are the biggest voting bloc in America.
One of the people we've been talking about for months and months will be the President of the United States for the next 4 years.
And for a lot of us, this is the first time that we're ever going to vote.
Do you have any idea how much of a difference 4 years makes?
The action that we take right now doesn't just affect us right now.
Discussion is important.
But words aren't the only thing. You have to take action.
So that we can actually affect real change instead of just talking about it.
You have that power, so don't let people silence you.
Get out there and take a part in making a difference.
Every voice really does matter, whether young or old. Especially young people, get out there and vote, damn it.
Now, more than ever, we can make a change.
I'm going to vote because I want this country to be different. I don't want the older generation to decide our future.
I want to make this world a better place for my son. You can make change, so get out there. Go. Do it.
Vote IRL. Vote IRL. Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote Earl. Vote in real life. Vote IRL.
Vote IRL. It's scary. We have to leave our couches.
All right, we got a graphic incoming. Putting up 3, 2, 1. All right. Video next. And next video. And power panel. And dropping it.
My name is Carlos Hernandez. I am the valet parking for this small parking lot. I work for TYTs and they coming to this lot over 4 years. I know two more famous person, Bernie Sanders, the former Vice President Al Gore, and too many other guys. I'm so happy to cover it with TYT.
All right, back on Young Turks. It's funny that Nomi randomly mentioned aspiration in the last story. Not randomly, it was made sense of the scope of the story, but they are one of our sponsors, and if you and you guys can go to them through aspiration.com/TYT. And their slogan is "Do well, do good," because they mean it. So they give away 10% to charity. You get to set your own fees. You can set them at 0 if you want, and it gives you peace of mind. It's totally clean. They don't put it in gun companies. They don't put it in oil companies, etc. So you know that they're not doing the same stuff that Wells Fargo is.
And also, if I could just add to that, economically, we talk about like the decisions these larger institutions make with our money, and they also take money from us in extra fees, as you mentioned, and so forth. And something, aspiration, not only does it not require fees, it allows people to set their own if they want to. It doesn't have ATM fees. It has a higher yield on savings account. Like if you go to open a savings account with them, you'll get over 2.1% on that savings, which you'll get about a tenth of at Wells Fargo and some of the larger banks. So there's economic reasons for you as well as the social benefits from how they manage that money on your behalf and as a bank that help everybody.
Yeah, the 2.1% is a little bit stunning. Yeah. And part of the reason they can do that is because they don't have stores. It's online, so they save all the money from that. So it makes sense. Okay. By the way, Bernie's got a rally tonight that we're covering. It's in South Carolina. But you can see it at facebook.com/rebelhq. Whenever there's a rally, facebook.com/rebelhq. Okay, let's go to the next story. So this is an amazing story of incredible injustice, but the twist on it is finally we're beginning to get a little bit of justice in addressing this issue. So what is it? Well, it's a story of rape kits. Now, you would think rape is one of the most serious crimes there is, and so if someone is charged with that, well, they would gather all the evidence that they can, and they do, and that is why they do these rape kits on women who have been sexually assaulted. But what's amazing is, apparently, they all over the country, they left a lot of them, tens of thousands of those rape kits, and never bothered to test them. Unbelievable. So let me give you the details. This is from the Associated Press. Languishing evidence in over 100,000 sexual assault cases around the country has been sent for DNA testing with money from a New York prosecutor and federal authorities, spurring over 1,000 arrests and hundreds of convictions in 3 years, officials said. So those 100,000 had not been tested. They went and found the money both at the federal level in D.C. and through the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. They said, we're not going to just do Manhattan. They did Manhattan first. Then they said, we're going to go help the rest of the jurisdictions go through those kits so we can get a little bit of justice. So that's the good news. Now, unfortunately, there's still a lot left. So it's estimated that another 150
55,000 or more sex assault evidence kits still await testing. And thousands of results have yet to be linked to suspects. Many who have been identified can't be prosecuted because of legal time limits and other factors. I'm going to tell you a story about a young woman and what happened to her in a minute, and it is heartbreaking. But in this case, it's Cyrus Vance Jr., who is the prosecutor at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. And AP explains, Vance, who took office after New York City cleared its own testing backlog, and the Department of Justice Bureau of Justice assistants have worked in tandem since 2015 to help other places tackle theirs, which is wonderful. The results have yielded 186 arrests and 64 convictions to date, with more investigations and prosecutions still underway, according to Vance's report. Meanwhile, another 45,000 rape kits have been sent to the labs through the Justice Department program, so that's the DC program, and it's produced nearly 899 prosecutions and 498 convictions and plea bargains, according to data the agency provided Monday to the Associated Press. Guys, I've been covering the news for now so long, I don't want to say the number. And I'm still sometimes naive. I couldn't believe that they wouldn't actually bother to utilize the rape kits to find out if somebody had been raped or not. And they just let them sit there for 10 years, sometimes 15 years. Stunning.
And you unpack that, and it is stunning. It's a crime for which it's a horrific crime. There's evidence. It can be tested. It wasn't tested. Now some of it's going to be tested. Some of it has. But what the sad thing about that is it does come down to, unfortunately, funding decisions made in some of these offices. That there are certain crimes that effectively can bring in money, and there's certain ones that don't really have that kind of a value attached to it, and that's one of the reasons they don't tend to get the funding. And great respect to Cyrus Vance Jr. for not just working on what was going on in New York, but expanding that throughout the rest of the country and trying to get some analysis and justice for these women.
I hadn't heard of this until you guys brought it to my attention. I mean, it's heartbreaking that this is happening. I can't believe that this is a thing, because you assume that once you do the rape kit, that then someone is going to go and investigate it. It's kind of like, I don't know if you guys have ever had this before, but when we've had an alarm go off at our house, and sometimes the cops take forever to show up, because what they'll do is they call you, they go, "Is the guy there?" And you go, "No, he's not here. I don't know what's, well, sir, we have a lot of emergencies we got to deal with. We'll get to you." And it takes sometimes an hour or two in LA for the cops to show up. So this is similar in a way, but much worse in that I can't believe, because when you see a movie or something, when somebody has something like this happen, there's a resolution at the end. But in real life, apparently, there isn't. I mean, when you do Ancestry.com, the results come back in 2 weeks, right? I'm serious. Why can't we do something? I mean, and the other thing that again, I hate to keep going back to Trump, but I got to do it. He keeps claiming about the state of emergency, and there's sexual assaults and all that stuff, and these criminals and coyotes are assaulting these women coming across the border, et cetera, wants to put $8 billion towards that. What about these real cases that we know of rape kits just sitting there? And it took a while for this, you were saying, the DA in New York to do this. So it goes back to priorities, and it goes back to smokes and mirrors. Like he's trying to get a boogeyman going. Meanwhile, we have actual things that need to be dealt with right here.
No, so I got to build on all those points because they're all amazing. So this program that they've been doing for 3 years, started under Obama, continued under Trump, is $154 million so far. That's a lot of money to you and me, but that's nothing to the federal government. The Trump is asking for $12 billion extra for the wall next year, right? So this is $154 million. It's like peanuts. What are we doing? Let's double it. It'll still be peanuts in the scope of things for the federal government. But we get to the other 155,000 rape kits that have not been tested. It's a no-brainer. I mean, and nobody's exactly right that when it's something that they can make money off of, like parking tickets or speeding tickets or possessing somebody's car, etc., if they have a joint on them, then they're all over it, and they make, then they'll spend a lot of time and energy because they make money. But if they have to spend money, they're like, wait, I can't believe they deprioritize rape. That means we're not safe on anything. Look, and to Maz's point, I've been robbed a couple of times, and I get it. Like, cops got a lot of stuff too. One time it was New York. And they broke into my apartment, took a bunch of stuff. The guy left a giant handprint as he lifted up my window, right? So all 5 fingerprints are on there. And the cops are like, yay, we're working around the clock. Yeah. They never even showed up. They don't care. But New York, yeah, I get it. Okay, so I had my car stolen. We found it. That was great. They took fingerprints. Working around the clock, 24/7. No, they never did anything on it, right? But okay, fine, whatever. They stole some sneakers. Okay, I got the car back, whatever. Rape! You're not looking at the evidence on a rape kit? Then what are you doing? What are we all doing? So here, I'll give you a specific example here of someone from that Associated Press covered. They explained one of those kids sat untested for 15 years in Tracy Rios' case, even though she'd given police the name of the then friend she accused of luring her into a vacant apartment and sexually assaulting her in 2002 in Tempe, Arizona. Police said they couldn't charge her based on her word, and then she underwent a rape kit exam, but the investigation soon stalled, she said. 2 years ago, she suddenly got some news. Her rape kit had finally been tested with money from the Manhattan DA's office, and police were pursuing her case anew. And they did, and they got the guy. And they arrested him, they convicted him, he got 7 years. And she said, it was amazing to know I was going to get justice. So for 13 out of those 15 years, they just left the kit and didn't bother testing it. All they had to do was pick it up.
And the guy was out.
And think about that too, guys. Right. I mean, to Maz's point, we're talking about, we need to build a wall to protect us from theoretical problems and security issues. Again, we've gone through the facts that don't actually exist, right? Undocumented immigrants commit less crime, way less crime than the average American citizen. But now that there's real perpetrators out there, rapists all across the country, literally, right? And we're not bothering to look at the rape kits so that we can find out not only to get justice, but to put the guys behind bars so they're not a threat to you and your family.
Yeah, and I wonder how much some of that, with the quote you just said about how they said that they couldn't take her on her word. So therefore, they need to get the rape kit, and they did, and then they just let it sit there. So I wonder how much some of that is also this thing of, maybe not believing the woman, or saying maybe you put yourself in that situation. Oh, it's a friend of yours, and you went on a date, and you know what I'm saying? That whole mentality, as opposed to sitting there and going, I have a daughter. And I go, if that were to happen, God forbid, to my daughter, I would not sleep until, I'd be calling them day and night going, did you test the rape kit? Did you test the rape? So rather than putting it aside, it almost feels like, unfortunately, we're saying it was a budgetary thing as well, but there needs to be a change in mentality to go, no, this is a priority. This got to move up that list. And as we keep saying, they keep finding other places to put money where they can make money. Like you said, you found a joint in your car. Well, then there goes the car. We can make money off of that.
Yeah, what's interesting, excuse me, is that the money that Vance Jr. set aside for the $36 million for the first 100,000 rape kits here actually came from bank-related fines. So there is that.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. Look, you go find the banks for wrongdoing, and voila, you created the money to actually get justice for women who were raped. And yes, of course, a lot of activists are saying, is this part of deprioritizing women, not believing women? So, look, whatever the motivation is, it's unacceptable. If you actually care about keeping people safe, which is what the right wing says they care about, and obviously the left wing cares about it, then we should all agree, spend a little bit more money here to make sure we test all these. It should be an absolute no-brainer. Okay, let me go to the next story here in the time that we have. Okay, this is a problem on a different level. So Representative Jackie Speier is a Democrat of California, and she is worried about family members of Donald Trump taking advantage of the United States of America. So she's decided she's going to do something about it. Let me tell you about that. She is introducing new legislation. It is called Restoring Integrity, Governance, Honesty, and Transparency Act of 2019. Now, that's a lot of words. They're all good words. So, wait a minute, what does that spell out? Oh, it spells out Right Act of 2019. Or you can do it the other way. Act right. Act right. Okay, and obviously the issue here is that Trump family members, they might not be acting right. So here's a proposal. Spire explained how a new bill would fine Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump $1,000 a day for circumventing federal laws against nepotism. Now, those were passed back in the Kennedy era. JFK had put Bobby Kennedy as his attorney general, which even Bobby Kennedy said before he got the post could be called nepotism, right? Now, as it turned out, he was a fantastic attorney general, but still, they're like, look, let's do things the right way here. We shouldn't have nepotism, so they passed laws against it. And Trump comes in and he's like, oh, I don't care. I've never followed the law in my life. So I'm just going to take my daughter and my son-in-law and I'm going to put them in incredibly important positions where they're deciding policy. So Spire now says, no, now we control the House. We're going to fight back. We're not going to let you do it. So one more quote from her. She says, if you're a volunteer in the White House, you're going to be paying $1,000 a day fine for trying to manipulate the laws in this country as it relates to nepotism. Oh, boy.
Yeah, so this is this is good. I mean, there are actually laws that we're supposed to have kept Ivanka and Jared from even having the positions and the sort of White House offices near the president / their father-in-law that actually do exist. And the idea behind the combination of the nepotism rules and the Code of Conduct, Federal Code of Conduct, Title 18, is that you're not supposed to also be making money out of your position in the executive branch. So not as the president or vice president, they're sort of excluded from this. There's another conflict of interest thing that comes under that, but for actually anybody else who's hired. And one of the things that happened with Ivanka and Jared is because they're not getting paid by the executive branch. It was decided by Trump. Like there's no actual like words in the law that talks about money and actually sort of payment for those positions. But that was the decision made at the time, and it's never actually been called upon. For his family members, that they actually are making money from those positions. They do have access because of those positions, and he's pushed to get them additional, as we know, national security clearances in those positions.
I mean, it's so obvious, and even Michael Cohen said this is all a branding campaign. It's all a marketing campaign. These guys, their brand is going up. They're making money off of this stuff. It's just ridiculous. If either one of them had come from these worlds, if Jared had, been a peace negotiator from the United Nations and now he's in charge of peace in the Middle East, then, okay, you got an argument to be made. This dude, I mean, come on, look at him. He's, come on, man. This guy doesn't know what he's doing. And, I mean, listen, it's, the fact is, I'm not saying he's dumb. I'm sure, these both of them have their own expertise in whatever they do, but they're not experts in what Trump is having them do. I love my kids, but if I ever get a TV show, they're not going to be the head writers. You know what I'm saying? They're not allowed in the room, right? And so,
they get coffee for you on the
yeah,
outside. Right?
Listen, I love Jackie Spear, and I think it should be more than $1,000 because the fact is, somebody made this argument. You put out a tweet, somebody comes back at you with some stupid, idiotic response. Go figure. But I had some tweet out there, something about Trump and him taking, the tax cuts for the rich and all that stuff. And they said, well, no, he's not taking a salary.
Right.
I'm like, are you that dumb that this is like his 100 or 200,000 or whatever he's not making 400,000? You think that's the big picture? Like you don't see all the other money he's making on the side, right?
So let me go to what might be another motivating factor where there's a lot more money involved, to Maz's point, right? So first of all, Jared Kushner has never earned anything in his life. We talked about the scandal of people bribed to get into the schools that happened this week. Remember, Kushner's family gave Harvard $2 million to take their idiot son in. Okay, so he didn't earn his way into Harvard, did he? And by the way, now we know Felicity Huffman only paid $15,000. Jared Kushner was so stupid, his parents had to pay over $2 million to get into Harvard.
That's right, she got a deal.
Okay. Yeah, and he did what is arguably the worst real estate deal in certainly in New York history, maybe in U.S. history. In one of his buildings, that's now legendary, and he can't unload it. And he went to the Chinese, to the Middle East, to try to unload it as soon as Trump got elected. Oh my God, that's a massive conflict of interest. There was a deal with the Chinese that would have saved him $400 million. I mean, you want to talk about a bribe? That would have been the biggest bribe maybe in world history. And then the Chinese got embarrassed when it was when it went in the papers. They're like, okay, that looks too bad. Okay, no, we're going to back out of the deal.
They
okay.
backed out, right?
And so, and now finally, the deal that really has us concerned is with the Saudis. So Kushner goes over to Saudi Arabia recently. Normal protocol is you tell the embassy, the U.S. embassy, and you say, hey, I'm going to a country, and so I'm going to need security. We need meetings, and when we get, and even if I set up the meetings, obviously I'm going to have people from the embassy with their meetings and stuff. Kushner doesn't tell them. Other officials are not allowed in the meetings. Where have we seen this before? Trump with the Russians. Now Jared Kushner with the Saudis. Why don't you want other American officials to make meetings with the Saudis? Why do you want to keep it secret? And remember, he couldn't even get national security clearance until Trump broke the law. To be fair, he didn't break the law. The president can do that. But he circumvented every other procedure that people go through and overruled his own national security officials and said, nah, it's okay. Then he goes on Kushner goes on a secret mission to Saudi Arabia. And not only that, he says, I want my security handled not by America, but by the Saudis. What? So, are you sure that Kushner is not making a deal to enrich himself with the Saudis or these other governments? I mean, $1,000 a day, you're right, Maz. I'm barely beginning to cover it.
Right. It's and again, he was making deals. I mean, that's the entire point. I mean, he was trying to make a deal with the Chinese. He is trying to make a deal in general because his whole conglomerate of companies that his family is involved in is also involved in real estate that the Saudis also happen to be involved in. I mean, what's he doing? Just sitting there like with no one around talking about, I don't know, sand? I mean, what is he doing? Like he's talking, you know, there has, but even if there isn't, even if let's say that is all he's talking about, the lack of decorum involved in this and the combination to the conflict of interest that is involved in this by virtue of the entire company that his family runs is staggering.
And sorry, just one more thing for me. Seth Abramson and some others are now saying, no, you guys don't know, like, we're at the tip of the iceberg in the Kushner corruption. And apparently there's a new book coming out soon, not even the one that came out this week, but another one that's coming out where they're going to talk about how Kushner might have been going around the whole time trying to make deals for himself and for his family to enrich themselves, and that is part of the reason why they didn't want, the national security officials didn't want him to have top secret clearance, that it was a real problem for America. And so if that comes out, then that's a whole nother level of mess.
And listen, Jack, I mean, if it comes out that he was doing intentional deals, then okay, then at least you go, he at least had some intention of what he was doing. I feel that he's kind of a useful idiot. I mean, we don't know. He doesn't have any experience in this world. He's kind of the Johnny English of this world. You know what I'm saying? He could be, because he's not James Bond. He's Johnny English, right? In that it's like, this dude he can be played, like you just said. If he's going over there, whether it's with the Chinese or with the Saudis or whatever, these guys have experience playing people like this. And the thing is, the other side, again, takes this thing of like, well, we need someone to get in there and mix it up, someone who's got, just because, you know, they're not part of the swamp, they don't have the experience. Who wants somebody without experience? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. When people go, I want someone who has no experience to run this stuff. It blows my mind. Like, that's the only time you never hear someone go, oh, you know, I want a surgeon with no experience. I really want someone who's going to take my eye and put it in the other eye. You know, I mean, it's just, it's so dumb. So it's unbelievable they're getting away with this right in front of everybody.
So the exact words of this law is that an employee of the executive office cannot use the public office for private gain or the endorsement of any product. I mean, that's kind of clear.
And so that's Jared. We haven't even talked about Ivanka, because when you say the endorsement of products, immediately after Trump got elected, China cleared a bunch of trademarks for Ivanka Trump in China, personally enriching her. Literally, indisputably. By the way, here's one of the fun parts. You know, one of the businesses that they got trademarks on in China was a series of massage parlors and escort services.
And it's interesting, just more so.
I'm not kidding.
There is a spa by Ivanka Trump that is the name of it in the international
Ivanka Trump has a strong there.
Ivanka Trump should. There's also the Ivanka Trump suite, which is one of the more expensive suites in the Trump hotel.
Ivanka, I want to give you a no, that's bad. I want to give you a happy ending. No, that's bad. I'm looking for.
Gonna go there.
I went there.
By the way, when that story first came out a while back, they said, "Oh no, it's so that people don't use the Ivanka name or the Trump name to set up the prostitution, etc. or whatever." But then we saw the story about Robert Kraft, and then the owner of the massage parlor was next to Trump in the Super Bowl, and she's from China. Okay, I mean maybe.
Such a coincidence.
Right, and all the other businesses that they got trademarks for, they are planning to actually operate in China. So, would you put it past them? I don't know. There's no way to find out until we see that ending. Okay. All right, guys. We got to take a quick break. We got a lot more for you guys when we come back.
Hey guys, I'm Nick Hanauer, and I am definitely not the kind of person you usually hear on the Young Turks. Why? Because I am a blood-sucking venture capitalist and technology entrepreneur. But here's the difference between me and most of my fellow capitalists. I'm absolutely clear that rising inequality is going to destroy both the economy and our democracy. In our podcast, Pitchfork Economics, I'm going to explain to you how the game is rigged and what we can do collectively to fix the system and create an economy that works for everybody. So please subscribe to Pitchfork Economics. You'll find it wherever you get your podcasts.
T-minus 1 minute till landing. TYT broadcast controllers, listen up. Please go for landing. Down.
Audio is coming in minus 12 decibels. Word up.
Terrific. Yeah. We're good. Keep on. Sir, we are go for landing. Okay, everybody. I want to go off without a hitch.
Sir? I've been looking over this joke for the past hour, and with the bandit firing now weeks old, and waiting in
English, Johnson, English. What are you trying to tell me?
this joke isn't going to land, sir.
Okay, everyone. Get your plan. From this moment on, we're improvising a new joke.
So this is where the show started, and this is where it was supposed to end. Now the joke is supposed to land here, but that's good. So we need to come up with a new joke. Maybe here?
You need to start dropping streams are down, and retweets are stopping.
How was your workout so far? You doing the serious workouts or?
We gotta find a way to make this fit into a joke about this. That would appeal.
Or Lily B.
30 seconds.
Lily B.
We are officially out of time. We need to act now.
Sir, I think our best course of action is to let Jake try to land a death.
Some mustache with beer.
That's the deal?
How's it going, boys? Lindo. Well, hi, everything is good. Working out hard, staying focused, trying to get the show ready soon. Maybe 2 months, 3 months. Do some big bodybuilding shows again, go on stage. Yeah, pretty much everything's good.
With all due respect, sir, I think it's
yeah.
the finest hour duty.
And so, Happy New Year's for fans and friends and family. عیدتون مبارک. سال خوبی داشته باشید. سالی پر از برکت و سلامتی باشه براتون. Yes, today tonight is happy Persian New Year for Persian friends and family. Yes, I was still on my OnlyFans for a while, but I think I'm gonna back soon on OnlyFans and do some videos, but now I'm focusing on my body a little bit. Try to back to the competition as soon as possible I can. That was a little bit take a time, it's not easy. So also is only fans with a lot of time. That's why I'm using it anyway.
Alright, back at Young Turks.
Yes, but hopefully soon I come back to the OnlyFans or this. توجه عزیز سال خوبی داشته باشی. دارم روی بدنم کار میکنم انشالله که بتونم مسابقه حاصل بشم. Not bad, I'm happy about the result. Going there, leaner, better, getting the quality. This year's I'm going to do the first place, hopefully. Yeah, pretty much good. End of this month, I have a shoot with local company in New York City, so I'll have to put my hair a little more. My hair is not so long anymore.
And then Nomi
getting ready.
Website is nomiprince.com.
Yeah, pretty much that's it.
Just launched Nomi?
So we just launched last night in LA. I'm doing some monthly salons for women on
Stay tall, stay strong, keep it chill, be nice to yourself and others. مخلص أنا بقى شيرين ولا بخشي.
That's awesome. I just got time for one quick comment from the member section.
All business, everybody cries, killed everybody like a
burglary, but not too busy investigating someone's lawn mowing while black. That's true. I mean, I'm always amazed by that they investigated a guy who was mowing someone's lawn because he was black. Who mows anybody else's lawn? Okay. This guy's not awesome. I just got time for one quick comment from the member section. Runzikir says, interesting how they're too busy to help Cenk about a burglary, but not too busy to investigate someone lawn mowing while black. That's true. I mean, I'm always amazed by that they investigated a guy who was mowing someone's lawn because he was black. Who mows anybody else's lawn? Okay. This guy snuck in here and did me a favor. Okay. Anyways, all right, time for one story. So, of course, all of you remember the scandal of cheating in colleges, a couple of celebrities, Felicity Huffman, a bunch of business leaders were involved. One of the celebrities was Lori Loughlin, and she had her daughter, Olivia Jade, into USC. Well, it turns out that she was in an interesting place when the scandal happened. TMZ broke the story. As Lori Loughlin, they explained, traveled from Vancouver to LA Tuesday night to surrender to federal authorities in the college bribery scandal, which caught her daughter, Olivia Jade, into USC. Olivia spent the night on the yacht of the chairman of USC's Board of Trustees. And then, I love this part of the sentence. Then it continues. But she's off the boat now, TMZ has learned. Wait, why is that even relevant? She's off the boat, everybody. It's okay.
It's all right.
Totally off the boat. Okay, not on a go, not on a boat. Okay. Whew. Okay. So, now, if you remember on the first day of the story, we actually had a video about Olivia Jade, from Olivia Jade. So I just want to remind you who she is. But remember, as you're watching the video, don't worry. She is off the boat. Let's watch.
The whole college thing, yep, I'm going. I'm living in a dorm with a roommate who's so sweet. With work, it's going to be hard. Like my first week of school, I'm leaving to go to Fiji for work. And then I'll be in New York a bunch this year for work and traveling to a different country because I'm creating something with this country and that's for work. So I don't know how much of school I'm going to attend, but I'm going to go in and talk to my deans and everyone and hope that I can try and balance it all. But I do want the experience of like game days, partying. I don't really care about school, as you guys all know.
That's the person that they bribe people to get into school, the one that doesn't care about school. Look, I've said this 100 times now in the course of this week. It's not on the kids. The parents did the cheating, and that's what the prosecutors say. It is an interesting question as to whether the kids should stay in the schools, do they haven't earn their way in. She apparently doesn't even care about it. The only reason why the yacht story is even funny, other than the, whoa, she's with the Board of Trustees chairman, is, wait, you're supposed to be in school. What are you doing on a yacht? Right? She wasn't playing. She really doesn't care about school.
Well, you know, she kind of did combine the school yacht friend thing. I mean, you know, you could look at it like that. You know, she She didn't. She wasn't on a random yacht
It was
at
in
that
the
moment.
Bahamas.
I mean, she's off now. It was in the Bahamas, and it was with the chairman of the board of trustees of USC.
It was a study
Yeah.
abroad program, right? In the Bahamas.
Study aboard.
Study aboard. You know, I watch her and I'm sitting there going like, wait, you go to college to get work, to come out and get work. She had a career. Why did she even go to college? Like, why the parents make this? She obviously, that was a cry for help on that. If the parents watched her YouTube, they would have been like, whoa, let's get that $500,000 back. She obviously, this girl's got a career going already.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm sure it's as an accountant expert or something. Maybe it has to do with the fact that her mom's a celebrity, and then she's using that for whatever career she's doing. Yeah. Anyway, the gentleman who is the chairman of the board of trustees is Rick Caruso. He's a billionaire, and look, he put out a statement saying he's outraged. They fired the person that was taking the bribes at USC, and I believe him on that. And it happens that his daughter is friends with Olivia, and that's why they were on the yacht together. But it doesn't look great, right? And it seems like a lot of rich folks working together, not necessarily for our benefit. A couple of students in Stanford are suing about this, saying, hey, listen, not only did we not get into some of those schools, even though we got into Stanford, but apparently because other people were bribing him. But now, how much is my Stanford diploma worth if it turns out people bribe their way into Stanford? Good question. That'll go to the courts. Okay, we got to go. Everybody check out monsterrunning.com, knowingchris.com. We got two great guests coming up for you right now. We'll be right back.
Despite the fact that we get a lot of mean, hateful, hurtful tweets about old school, we're going to put all the nice ones together and read them to you.
Came in late to watch TYD Old School, and I heard Jake Ewer talking about napkins. Is this the kind of nonsense Anna Kasparian was talking about? Gotta love membership privileges. Gotta love it.
Please have Dave on every 4 episodes or so. Hashtag colorisms, hashtag no cheese.
Yay! I love Old School! Watching Ben Mankiewicz and Jake Ewer on Old School talking is exactly like watching Seinfeld and George. But I'm not sure that's...
Loving Emma Vigeland after last night's Old School. Did I mention that was my first Old School? Pretty awesome. I agree. They're pretty awesome.
Who's on Old School today? Is there one? At Dave. I hope it's not Brett Ehrlich.
This episode of Old School has killed me. Who knew a conversation about good and bad underwear could be so hilarious and relatable? Hashtag one last ride. Animals are innocent, dude. There's more than a 73% chance this Old School will be really funny. Cenk Uygur has been up since 4 a.m., so he's tired. Hence, everything will seem funnier to him. P.S. Remember, food talk, new words, and no or very little politics.
Dave Kohler, enjoyed performance on Old School. Can we please hear about your time as a geologist? One geologist to another. Hashtag geology.
Can someone please inform Ben that his hair is too organized for Old School? It needs to be slightly shuffled about or something to look slightly unkempt. It's making me uncomfortable. That's what Old School's all about, being unkempt. Great show, guys. I wish Old School went on a lot longer. It's already like 2.5 hours. How much longer can we go?
Old School is a lot of fun, and I appreciate that all these people enjoy it, because I know Cenk loves to do it, and he does it because he knows the fans love it too.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to No Filter. Hey, guys. Welcome back to No Filter. Do you guys like that intro music? I hope you enjoyed that CSI-like intro music that brought you into the program today. I don't know how to describe it. It's the People's Court type of music. All right, with that said, let's get to the news. Last Thursday, an employee at the store called 911 to report that the men were trespassing because they hadn't purchased anything. What? That is one of the most insane arguments I've heard. Trump's administration would like to protect the big banks and assist them in screwing you over. We should have a government that protects us. Yeah, I'm putting you on blast. Now, with that said, I want to move on to another injustice in the country, and that has to do with CEO pay. Teachers in several red states are making headlines protesting the fact that their districts have been severely underfunded. They haven't received raises in years, sometimes decades. Damn, keeping it 100.
Wow. Top. No. No.
My name is Cassandra Hanks. I've been with TYT for 3 years. I am a video editor and a photographer. The main perk for working for TYT is, as being their main photographer, I get to photograph and sometimes meet some of the celebrities that come through. Susan Sarandon was amazing because she brought her dog Penny. Tom Morello is probably my favorite because I love rock music. Meeting people like Joss Whedon and Quentin Tarantino has been some of the reasons why I got into filmmaking and photography was like a dream come true.
Back on the Young Turks. Remember, we have a whole other hour for you guys now, for 3 hours. So, in the next segment, I've got another great guest for you guys. He's a Muslim American that's been helping other religions in the country. So, for example, after the synagogue was attacked in Pittsburgh, he raised a lot of money for them. And he's done that over and over again. It's an amazing story, so don't miss that. Last half hour is just for members, and Nomi Chris is going to come back. I'm going to do two things there. One is somebody punked the lieutenant governor of Texas and made him hold a abolish ICE sign, and he didn't realize it. It's a fun story. They actually gave us an exclusive on it, and I want to share it with the members here because I think you guys will really enjoy it. And then in the next segment, I've got another great guest for you guys. He's a Muslim American that's been helping other religions in the country. So, for example, after the synagogue was attacked in Pittsburgh, he raised a lot of money for them. And he's done that over and over again. It's an amazing story, so don't miss that. Last half hour is just for members, and Nomi Chris is going to come back. I'm going to do two things there. One is somebody punked the lieutenant governor of Texas and made him hold a abolish ICE sign, and he didn't realize it. It's a fun story. They actually gave us an exclusive on it, and I want to share it with the members here because I think you guys will really enjoy it. And then, in the post games, we do a little bit more about our personal lives. And we never got to find out where Nomi grew up, etc. So I want to go and do that a little bit, find out more about how she got to be a Goldman Sachs banker, a very successful one, and then obviously was a progressive that turned on Goldman Sachs. So it's a really great story. Don't miss that. The members get the last half hour. tyt.com/join to become a member, or if you want to get a free trial for a week, tyt.com/trial. All right, now let me go to my next guest. Joining me now is Mike Siegel. He had what I would characterize as a very successful run for Congress in 2018, and he's going to do it again in 2020. He was in Texas' 10th district, and I'll tell you why I think it was successful in a second. Mike, welcome to the Young Turks.
Hi, Jake. Thanks so much for having me.
No problem. So, Mike, you ran against 7-term incumbent Michael McCall, Republican there. He had won by, I think, 19 points before in 2016. What was the result of your race?
We were able to narrow the margin to 4 points with very little support from the National Party or major funders. We ran a purely grassroots campaign, hit thousands upon thousands of doors, and narrowed the gap to 4 points. And now what was used to be thought of as a deep Republican district for 2020 is a national battleground.
So, Mike, I'm a little worried about you, and I'll tell you why. It might be a funny thing to say after the good news you just gave. You closed a 15-point lead, and you turned a non-competitive district into a competitive one. But you are a progressive, and so a lot of times what happens is the South sees that a progressive did really well and goes, "Oh, we got a great idea. Let's now replace him with a banker, and if he was a veteran of some sort and is very pro Republican Party, then we might have a shot at that race." So I don't know if you've seen any rumblings yet of that, but are you bracing for impact, or do you think the Democratic Party is going to say, "Hey, look, this guy did great. Let's run him again"?
Well, I want to give them every chance to do the right thing and support the person that made this a winnable seat. At the same time, I am aware that there might be a challenger kind of from the right wing of the party in the mode you talked about. At the same time, we ran such a strong grassroots campaign. Last year we recruited 1,000 volunteers for this effort. We contacted voters 300,000 times. We made alliances, across these 9 counties. This 10th district goes from basically Austin to the Houston suburbs and includes 7 rural counties in between. So the rank and file activists of the Democratic Party in Texas, they love me because we did that detailed work. We fought on issues that matter for folks, like voting rights at Prairie View A&M, or resisting the family separation policy that Michael McCall supported. So I think we've developed a nice firewall to prevent that kind of right-wing, well-funded air attack. But at the same time, we have our work cut out for us.
Yeah, and I say that based on evidence. I remember this happened a number of times. The one that I remember most is Colonel Applegate almost defeated Darrell Issa. It was the closest election in 2016. And then the Democratic Party came in and said, "Oh, you almost won, step aside." And so now he's in a situation that if he leaves office, he might go to prison. So now he's talking about, well,
Fargo in particular has a laundry list like longer than that. Immediate trip after.
Look. What? Stop! Stop! Look. What? Stop! Stop! Look. What? Stop! Stop!
called it the Traveller, and its arrival changed us forever. Great cities were built on Mars and Venus. Mercury became a garden world. Human lifespan tripled. It was a time of miracles. We stared out at the galaxy and knew that it was our destiny to walk in the light of other stars. But the Traveller had an enemy, a darkness which had hunted it for eons across the black gulfs of space. Centuries after our golden age began, this darkness found us. And that was the end of everything. But it was also a beginning.
Hello everyone and welcome to another anime discussion. I'm your host Merlin, and today we'll be discussing the homunculi from Fullmetal Alchemist, the original anime. Now a little while ago I did a little villains video discussing Father and the homunculi from the Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood series. People seem to enjoy that video, and interestingly I've had several requests to discuss the villains from the original FMA series. This surprised me, not because I dislike the original interpretations of these characters in anime form, but because I feel that the newer series has overshadowed the original in recent years. So it is sort of refreshing that these villains help to make an impact. In this video, I will briefly describe the character and delve into their purpose for the series and the impact they have had on the character or thematic perspective. Then I'll go over some contrast between the two series, and then my own personal.
Hello, everybody. This is Living, the Lord of Darkness, a crossover scene for many, many lineages. I am your co-pilot SD, without any pilot, and our scene is going to begin with a party at the Brooklyn. Hello, everybody. This is the Lord of Darkness, the new hope to gain Squire Salim. My apologies. Do not wish to intervene in family business.
Full Sail University is a place where creative dreamers go to learn their craft, filling the world with music, entertainment, games, art, and technology. We are
Do you want to learn to draw professional and impressive artwork from scratch that will blow people's minds? I'm Scott Harris, professional illustrator, painter, and artist.
Hi, welcome back to the PhotoshopTrainingChannel.com. I'm Mrs. Ramirez. In this video, I'm going to show you how to quickly and easily create comic book drawings from a photo in Photoshop. For this effect, we will use only 3 filters. As usual, I'll explain what every filter is doing behind the scenes so that you understand why we're using it, but more importantly, so that you can use it for other purposes, not just as drawing effect. By the way, if you're new to the Photoshop training channel, then don't forget to click on that subscribe and notification buttons. Okay, let's get started. This is the document that we're going to work with. It's just a single layer. Now, before we actually start with the tutorial, I want to show you how I created this image. It's simply a composite using all these layers, and it's basically this image here. This is an Adobe stock image, and this background. Then I went to select all to make a selection around the entire canvas, and then edit, copy, merge, and pasted all those layers as a single layer in this document. So that's how I got there, and that's how the image was created. The image is really not that important. This technique will work with most images, so go ahead and try it with any image that you like. And the reason that I'm using this image is because I wanted a cool sci-fi comic book vibe. The first thing that I'm going to do is right-click on the layer and select Convert to Smart Object, which means that we can work non-destructively and we can change the filters that we apply to this layer. The first thing that I'll do actually is press Ctrl-T, Command-T to transform, and then I'll scale up the image just so that we have a close-up view, much like the thumbnail for this video. So I'll scale that up and place her right about here. Then I'm going to press Ctrl-J, Command-J on the Mac to duplicate the original layer, and what we're going to work with first are the lines of the drawing. I'll disable the original layer just so that we're looking at the lines layer. So one of the filters that we're going to work with in this tutorial is Poster Edges, and that's found under the Filter menu under Filter Gallery. Then in the Artistic group, you can select Poster Edges. You can click and drag so that you can see what that does. Poster Edges reduces the number of colors in an image. In other words, it posterizes the image. So that's where the word poster comes from in the name. And the colors are reduced according to the posterization value that you use with this slider. So the lower the number, the fewer colors that you get. The higher the number, the more colors that you get. For this effect, I recommend starting with 2 and seeing if that works for your image, and then you can always come back and edit it if you need to. The second part of the name is edges. So poster edges, that means that we posterize the image and then add edges. So anytime that Photoshop finds an edge, it's going to add black, creating this outline look. And these 2 sliders control the edges of the image. The thickness of the image, how big the edges are. Again, you can always come back and edit them. So I'll leave the edge thickness at 2. And the intensity, basically how dark they are. So again, I'll reduce the intensity and then adjust it later if I need to. So I'll leave the edge intensity at 3. Then I'll press OK. What we want to do now is keep the black in the image and then remove everything else. So one way of doing that is by using an adjustment called threshold. I'm going to go into Image, Adjustment, Threshold, and it brings up this window that you see here. By default, the threshold is at 128. That means that any value higher than 128 will become white, and any value lower than 128 will become black. Now, if you don't know what I mean by 128, let me show you the foreground color. I'm going to double click on the foreground color and look at the RGB values here. If I select this gray here, you'll notice that we have a value of 77. If I go to black, we have a value of 0. If I go to white, we have a value of 255. So that's what that means. So if you have a 50% gray with a value of 128, then that means that anything brighter than that will be white, anything darker than that will be black. So threshold just gives you 2 colors, black and white, based on the luminosity of the image. And that's going to help us create our line art. So let me go back into threshold, and I can adjust it accordingly. I can move it to the right to make the drawing darker, or to the left to make it brighter. So fine tune it. In this case, a threshold of 29 will give us really good line work, and then press OK. So now we have these black lines with a white background, which is exactly what we want. I'm going to zoom in by tapping the Z key and then clicking, and notice that we have a problem. The problem is that this looks very jaggy, it looks very computer generated, it doesn't look very good. I would recommend just applying a setting that looks okay to press to 0. So that for the blending mode that will do, just double click on any one of these smart objects and it updates our comic book effect. This is my latest YouTube. So Instagram and use the hashtag PTCvids. Also, if there's an image, in other words, it posterizes the image. So within this tutorial is but more importantly, so that you can I'm Mrs. Ramirez. In this video, I'm going to show you how to quickly and easily create comic book drawings from a photo in Photoshop. For this effect, we will use only 3 filters. As usual, I'll explain what every filter is doing behind the scenes so that you understand why we're using it, but more importantly, so that you can use it for other purposes, not just as drawing effect. By the way, if you're new to the Photoshop training channel, then don't forget to click on that subscribe and notification buttons. Okay, let's get started. This is the document that we're going to work with. It's just a single layer. Now, before we actually start with the tutorial, I want to show you how I created this image. It's simply a composite using all these layers, and it's basically this image here. This is an Adobe stock image, and this background. Then I went to select all to make a selection around the entire canvas, and then edit, copy, merge, and pasted all those layers as a single layer in this document. So that's how I got there, and that's how the image was created. The image is really not that important. This technique will work with most images, so go ahead and try it with any image that you like. And the reason that I'm using this image is because I wanted a cool sci-fi comic book vibe. The first thing that I'm going to do is right-click on the layer and select Convert to Smart Object, which means that we can work non-destructively and we can change the filters that we apply to this layer. The first thing that I'll do actually is press Control. Not that important. This technique will work with most images, so go ahead and try it with any image that you like. And the reason that I'm using this image is because I wanted a cool sci-fi comic book vibe. The first thing that I'm going to do is right-click on the layer and select Convert to Smart Object. Which means that we can work non-destructively and we can change the filters that we apply to this layer. The first thing that I'll do actually is press Ctrl-T, Command-T to transform, and then I'll scale up the image just so that we have a close-up view, much like the to this layer. The first thing that I'll do actually is press Ctrl-T, Command-T to transform, and then I'll scale up the image just so that we have a close-up view, much like the thumbnail for this video. So I'll scale that up and place her right about here. Then I'm going to press Ctrl-J, Command-J on the Mac to duplicate the original layer, and what we're going to work with first are the lines of the drawing. I'll disable the original layer just so that we're looking at the lines layer. So one of the filters that we're going to work with in this tutorial is Poster Edges, and that's found under the Filter menu under Filter Gallery. Then in the Artistic group, you can select Poster Edges. You can click and drag so that you can see what that does. poster edges reduces the number of colors in an image. In other words, it posterizes the image. So that's where the word poster comes from in the name. And the colors are reduced according to the posterization value that you use with this slider. So the lower the number, the fewer colors that you get. The higher the number, the more colors that you get. For this effect, I recommend starting with 2 and seeing if that works for your image, and then you can always come back and edit it if you need to. The second part of the name is edges. So poster edges, that means that we posterize the image and then add edges. So anytime that Photoshop finds an edge, it's going to add black, creating this outline look. And these 2 sliders control the edges of the image. The thickness of the image, how big the edges are. Again, you can always come back and edit them. So I'll leave the edge thickness at 2, and the intensity, basically how dark they are. So again, I'll reduce the intensity and then adjust it later if I need to. So I'll leave the edge intensity at 3. Then I'll press OK. What we want to do now is keep the black in the image and then remove everything else. So one way of doing that is by using an adjustment called threshold. I'm going to go into Image, Adjustment, Threshold, and it brings up this window that you see here. By default, the threshold is at 128. That means that any value higher than 128 will become white, and any value lower than 128 will become black. Now, if you don't know what I mean by 128, let me show you the foreground color. I'm going to double click on the foreground. By default, the threshold image, how big the edges are. Again, you can always come back and edit them. So I'll leave the edge thickness at 2 and the intensity, basically how dark they are. So again, I'll reduce the intensity and then adjust it later if I need to. So I'll leave the edge intensity at 3. Then I'll press OK. What we want to do now is keep the black in the image and then remove everything else. So one way of doing that is by using an adjustment called threshold. I'm going to go into Image, Adjustment, Threshold, and it brings up this window that you see here. By default, the threshold is at 128. That means that any value higher than 128 will become white, and any value lower than 128 will become black. Now, if you don't know what I mean by 128, let me show you the foreground color. I'm going to double click on the foreground color and look at the RGB values here. If I select this gray here, you'll notice that we have a value of 77. If I go to black, we have a value of 0. If I go to white, we have a value of 255. So that's what that means. So if you have a 50% gray with a value of 128, then that means that anything brighter than that will be white, anything darker than that will be black. So threshold just gives you 2 colors, black and white, based on the luminosity of the image. And that's going to help us create our line art. So let me go back into threshold, and I can adjust it accordingly. I can move it to the right to make the drawing darker, or to the left to make it brighter. So fine tune it. In this case, a threshold of 29 will give us really good line work, and then press OK. So now we have these black lines with a white background, which is exactly what we want. I'm going to zoom in by tapping the Z key and then clicking, and notice that we have a problem. The problem is that this looks very jaggy, it looks very computer generated, it doesn't look very good. But we can use a filter that is designed to transform an image to give it the visual appearance of a painting. So let me show you what I mean by that. If you go into Filter, Stylize, Oil Paint, you're going to get the Oil Paint filter, which makes it seem as if those lights were painted on. By the way, make sure that lighting is off. Lighting creates this effect of the actual paint on a canvas. You can see how it's got height and depth. We don't really want that in this case, so just disable it. These black lines form an image to give it the visual appearance of a painting. So let me show you what I mean by that. If you go into Filter, Stylize, Oil Paint, you're going to get the Oil Paint filter, which makes it seem as if those lights were painted on. By the way, make sure that lighting is off. Lighting creates this effect of the actual paint on a canvas. You can see how it's got height and depth. We don't really want that in this case, so just disable it and just work with the stylization and cleanliness. Stylization adjusts the style of the strokes. ranging from 0 to 10. 0 creates a dab look, and 10 creates a smooth stroke. So I'm going to increase it all the way to the end, and you'll see how it creates a long, smooth stroke, and I can bring that down, and it creates that dab look. So again, you have to fine-tune it accordingly until you get something that works for your image. I would recommend just applying a setting that looks okay and then coming back and editing later. And I'll show you how to do that in a moment. And then adjust the cleanliness. Cleanliness adjusts the length of the stroke, ranging from short strokes to long strokes. So short strokes or long strokes. And again, all these settings are subjective and you can adjust them as you see fit. In this case, I'll just leave it at 1.5 and I'll press OK. Then I'll right click and fit the image to screen just so that you can see what we have. So now we created a line art and it looks great. Let's now work on the color that we're going to use for this comic book effect. So I'm going to collapse the smart object, disable the layer, and I'm going to press Ctrl-J, Command-J on the Mac on this original layer to duplicate it, and I'll enable it, and I'll change it to color. This is going to be the color of the image. And we're going to use the same filters to create the color. So go into Filter, Filter Gallery, and Poster Edges to be selected by default, since it's the last filter that we used. And then all I will do is just bring the edge thickness to 0 and the edge intensity to 0. So that removes the edges and we keep the color of the image, which is exactly what we want. Then I'll press OK. And we're going to use the oil paint filter to make it look as if it was painted by hand. So go to Filter, Stylize Oil Paint, and you can use the same settings for now and just press OK. So we now have the color and we have the line art. To combine these two layers, we're going to use a blending mode. Blending modes allow you to blend layers together based on several factors, including luminosity and in some cases color. In this case, we were only worried about the luminosity because we want to keep the dark pixels, the line art, and we want to remove the white pixels, the white background. So the blending mode that will do just that is multiply. When you select multiply, you'll notice that the white disappears and you keep the black. So just like that, we created the comic book effect. And by the way, if you're enjoying the tutorial, do me a favor and click on that like button now and let me know down in the comments below what you've learned. Now, remember what I said a moment ago, that you can always come back and make adjustments to your image, and that's exactly what you should do at this point. So let me show you what I mean by that. I expanded the smart filter and you can see all the filters that you applied. You can click on these eye icons to disable them or enable them by clicking on the empty spaces. So if I double click on the first one, Filter Gallery, you can see how the poster edges filter comes back and I can make an adjustment. So I can make thicker edges and make them darker, press OK, and the adjustment is updated to my drawing. In this case, I didn't really want to do that, so I'm going to undo that step. Something that I do recommend doing is playing around with the threshold. So I'm going to